Hello everyone, Amedeo602 here, and today we're going to go over 30 tips to help you be a better sniper in Blackout. This tips video is divided into two sections. The first half of the video is going to be general tips that are really good for everyone, not just snipers. And the second half we're really going to focus on things that specifically are just key for snipers. So I'm going to go ahead and leave a label or an annotation or something on the screen or in the description to just kind of give you an idea where the second half of this video begins. So my first tip, and again this is the section that's applicable to all weapons, is don't stop moving. Don't stand still and aim. Just keep moving, no matter what gun you're using, whether it's a sniper or anything else. Don't stop moving because that lets the enemy track you easier. And it lets them just, especially snipers, enemy snipers, will be able to headshot you and you're going to die really quickly. Second tip here is to practice proper centering. And for anyone who doesn't know, centering is what the center of your screen is looking at. And you can watch in this gameplay right here, the center of my screen stays exactly where I want it to, in that that's where I expect the enemies to be. So if you're centered properly, as soon as you ADS, your aim, and for snipers, your scope, should be right on top of the enemy, which just minimizes the amount of time it takes for you to aim. The third tip is to try to maintain a height advantage whenever possible. In Call of Duty, just like in real life, whoever has the high ground just has a distinct advantage over the low ground. Sometimes that's not possible, and you can't have the high ground in every situation, but try to keep a height advantage whenever you possibly can. For snipers, that also means keeping your distance. My next tip, I'm going to say to use cover and concealment as much as possible. Cover is anything that stops a bullet, or mostly stops a bullet. Concealment just hides you visually. So notice when I go to use this perk here, I'm hiding behind a tree, just so I don't get shot by the other enemy. He's going to try to use a bush, and that's just concealment. And what happens in this gameplay is I actually snipe him right through the bush, and we end up with a victory. Going along with using cover is to use head glitches whenever you can. So again, this is just a general tip. Get yourself behind a nice rock, or a supply drop, or something that they can't shoot through, or at least can't shoot through well. Use a head glitch, that way the enemy can only see your head, they can't shoot the rest of your body. The seventh tip is to have a good backup weapon. And in general, I try to have one long range and one short range weapon. And in most games that ends up being one assault rifle with a nice scope on it, a 3 or a 4X, and an SMG with either an ELO or maybe a 2X sight for the daemon. If you've got a sniper rifle, that story changes a little bit, in that you need something with decent mid-range capability, so distances that are too close for a sniper rifle and maybe a little too far for an SMG. My go-to right now for a sniper rifle setup is the Paladin and either the Daemon or the KN or the Vapor. Those just seem to work very well for me. I'm not saying that's the only thing you can use, but certainly you want something that can handle close range better than a sniper rifle. Don't carry 2 sniper rifles, that's a mistake. So my next tip here is to stock up on attachments, and this is just a generic tip. The best attachment, probably in the whole game, is the extended barrel. And for sniper rifles, you also need a good scope on there. I like to use at least a 4X on the sniper rifles, and I try to use the sniper scope whenever I can. The other attachments, the grip, the foregrip, and the stock, and the extended mag, they're not as important for sniper rifles, but I try to have my sniper rifles decked out as soon as possible. Tip number 9 is to shoot through concealment. And this is just like that first long gameplay clip you saw where the guy was hiding behind the bush. You can damage enemies just fine if they're hiding behind the bush or these blue tarps. You can also damage enemies through windows, although that's really more of like a light cover because I believe, and I could be wrong about this, I've never measured it, but I believe the window stops at least some of the damage. The next tip is to shoot through any kind of light cover. So the windows are a good example of this, the wood buildings and firing range are an example of this. You can damage enemies just fine through a lot of these structures. And it's not quite as prevalent as it has been, say, in Modern Warfare Remastered or in other games in the series. You can certainly do damage through some of the walls in Blackout. Watch for limbs sticking out. So I actually just sniped a guy through this window of this orange house here, and I'm going to finish him off and get a free kill on his teammate with a grenade. If you see limbs sticking out, arms, legs, even a head, if you see their head poking out, shoot it. A lot of people will try to go prone when they revive their teammates or when they loot, which is a good thing to do, except sometimes they'll leave an ankle hanging out where you can just barely see it and get a snipe. So going along with that, if there's a supply drop in front of you that you just don't need, go ahead and use it as bait. Somebody will run up to it, and then you can just shoot them while they loot. You can also use down players as bait. This is tip number 13. And what I mean by that is don't finish off every enemy you down. Down them, especially if they're out in the open, and then wait for a teammate who's brave or stupid enough to try to revive them out in the open. A lot of times you can get a second kill out of that, turn one kill into two, and even if you can't, maybe they pick up the down guy, but you can just shoot them while they're down, and probably just finish them off. One exception to that is if they start to throw smoke. If you see smoke starting to spread, go ahead and try to finish the guy off, because there's a good chance you won't be able to hit them through the smoke once it's fully smoked. So tip number 14 is to keep guys pinned. And you notice I've got these guys in this gameplay right here, kind of pinned behind this tree. And I wish my teammates had been able to flank them, but they couldn't quite do it. If my teammates had been able to flank these guys, it would have been a nice, easy group of kills. So that's something nice, is if you have someone dead in your sights like this guy, it's very unlikely he's going to be able to make a break for it and run if you've got good sniper skills. So that just makes an easy kill for one of your teammates to circle around and take him out. The other option, of course, is if your teammates have someone pinned down, having nice long range, you can go around and you can definitely take them out and get a nice flank on them. That takes care of the first half of the video here. And for our second half of the video, we're going to focus on tips specific to snipers, or at least mostly specific to snipers. First thing is to practice with each sniper rifle. There are 4 sniper rifles in the game. Most damaging and the slowest to fire is the Paladin. The next most damaging and next fastest to fire is the Koshka, then the Outlaw, and then the SDM. I'm a big fan of the Paladin, and that's most people's favorite sniper rifles, at least the people who can hit headshots. The reason for that is a Paladin headshot is going to take anyone down in one hit. Level 3 armor, trauma kit, doesn't matter. Paladin's like a honey badger. Paladin don't care. Paladin takes him down with a headshot. I'm not a huge fan of the Koshka, just because I feel like you need to land too many shots with it, and it doesn't fire nearly as fast as the Outlaw. So the Outlaw is my second favorite sniper. And the SDM used to be fantastic. Got nerfed pretty hard a while back, and it's just never really come back from that. It's a little better than it used to be, so it's at least usable now, but it's number 4 on my list. Next thing is to aim for headshots. Especially if you've got the Paladin, if you hit them in the head, they are going down. If you've got a Koshka or an Outlaw, they're probably going down unless they have a trauma kit on or level 3 armor. And the headshot is just so satisfying. Ooh, this isn't a headshot, but this is a nice shot from 258 meters on the move. Ooh. When you're aiming for headshots, keep in mind that there are multiple sensitivity settings for Blackout. And the 3 that I'm going to talk about now, there's the normal ADS sensitivity, and I think you can adjust it independently on vertical and horizontal axes. But I leave mine both the same. I think they're both set to 8. But there's also the low zoom sensitivity where you can actually make it less sensitive when you're zoomed in with, I believe it's a 3x or lower sight. I have my multiplier set to 0.75. Then there's also a high zoom ADS sensitivity. So if you're using either a 4x or a sniper scope, that's going to use your high zoom sensitivity setting, and I have mine set to 0.5 off of that base 8, so it's like I'm playing with a sensitivity of 4. Lets me line up those headshots really easily. Ooh, there was a nice satisfying headshot. That sound is just so satisfying when you get the headshot. And of course, check out Kontrol Freeks. If you don't already use them, you can actually buy them at GameStop these days. They're about 10, 15 bucks for a set of Kontrol Freeks. Try them. You'll like them. Just try them, give them a chance. But they do take a little getting used to. I'm a big guy, I have big hands. I like the sniper Kontrol Freeks. And it gives you the most fine-grained control over your aim. And to me, they're very comfortable. I'm not a fan of the convex Kontrol Freeks. I like the concave ones, so the snipers work out perfectly for me. Tip number 20 here is to lead your shot. And what I mean by that is if your target's far away and moving, you have to shoot where the target is going to be, not where the target is now. This is largely an exercise in just practice. Practice, practice, practice. If the target's not moving, you do still have to account for bullet drop, which is tip number 21. And bullet drop just means that over a long distance, your bullet will actually go down due to gravity. You have to be at pretty extreme ranges, maybe 200, 250 meters before you start to see that. So just keep that in mind. If you have an extended barrel, it's a little bit farther out. It's actually a lot farther out. If you've got an extended barrel, you probably don't need to worry about this. How do you account for bullet drop and aim for headshots from far away? Or really, even if you're kind of close? And the best tip for that is just hold your breath. So if you push in on your left stick, by default, it's whatever your sprint key is. That lets you hold your breath, and it eliminates most of your idle sway on the sniper rifle. Of course, you can only hold your breath for a few seconds, unless you're using the Iron Lungs perk, and then you can hold your breath a lot longer. So that's tip number 23, is to use Iron Lungs. Iron Lungs also comes in very handy when you're trying to swim across the river, because you can stay underwater longer. Tip number 24 is to choose your targets carefully. And what I mean by this is, let's say you're playing duos, and you see a group of two, and one guy is moving real slow or standing still, and the other guy is running around, bunny hopping everywhere, just not standing still. But you see the guy who's not standing still, and maybe he's wearing a wood skin, and maybe the other guy is wearing the George, the default character skin. Well, you can probably tell which of those two players is higher skilled, right? So try to take out Woods if you can. Wait for him to stop moving if you can. If not, go ahead and take out George. It makes Woods that much less dangerous. So tip 25 kind of goes along with the previous tip of choosing your targets carefully. Pay attention to the character skins that people are using. If you see Woods, if you see Reznov, if you see a glowing Prophet or a glowing Seraph, those are high value skins. Those are skins that are difficult to obtain, and so they should be your primary targets if you get the chance. If all other things are equal, I'm definitely going to shoot at a glowing Prophet before I shoot at George. Tip number 26 is to target engaged players. And what I mean by this is a player or a group of players who's already fighting someone. Now, what I typically like to do is I like to find both groups, and I like to assess whichever group is stronger of the two. And again, that can be by looking at the high value skins, that can be by just looking at their movements. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to take out the biggest threat to me that I can take out. So if I see two groups fighting and one group looks like they're clearly going to lose that fight, I will focus my attention on the group that is winning and try to get kills for all the players in both of those groups. That's what I mean by targeting engaged players. This next tip is a big one. Tip number 27 is to call out your targets before you shoot. And the reasoning behind this is that your teammates can actually pre-aim the same target as you, and on your go, they can finish him and probably kill him right away without any chance for revival. Tip number 28 is to take the shot as soon as you can. But remember, you only get one first shot, because then your element of surprise is gone. So if you see, let's take our duo's example, and let's say both players are running around and moving erratically, just like we said for tip number 1 is to not stop moving. If you see that happening, then what you need to do is you need to wait for one of them to stand still just long enough to shoot him in the head. And that can happen while they're looting, it can happen while they're fighting another group, it might even happen while they're activating a perk or healing or repairing their armor. But take the shot as soon as you can, you may not get a second chance. Avoid any kind of extended engagements when you can. So if there are still 20 people left, and you've been shooting at another group and they've been shooting at you for the last 30 or 40 seconds, it's probably time to back away from that fight, there's no shame in that, and just get yourself out of that situation. Because what will happen if you stay in an extended engagement is someone else will go ahead and do tip number 26, perform tip number 26 on you, which is to target an engaged player. So someone else is going to shoot you in the back. Avoid those extended engagements unless it's the end of the game, you're against the last group or the last person, and you're just trying to whittle down their health. There are a couple other situations where the extended engagements are okay to get into, but typically you want to avoid those as much as possible. My last tip to be a good sniper is to know when to not be a sniper. So what I mean by this is it really just kind of goes back to keeping your distance from opponents and using the right gun in the situation. At the end game, if you're not in a good opportunity to use the sniper rifle, don't use the sniper rifle. Now, if you really do want to use the sniper rifle, maybe put a smaller scope on it, so maybe a 3x or a 2x instead of your sniper scope. Typically you'll want to switch over to your backup weapon, which is another reason why it's really important to have a backup weapon. So that's all the tips that I have for being a good sniper in Blackout. I hope you enjoyed the commentary, I hope you learned something useful. I hope you enjoyed the gameplay. If you enjoyed any of those things, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, thanks for watching.